This is Chicken Philosophy, the Divine Pymander of Hermes Trismegistus, Part 3, in which I pick up right where Gwydion left off in Part 2. If you would like to start at Part 1, click right there. That's the Divine Pymander playlist. Now that they're gone, they're going to have to listen to so much more introduction than you. Aren't you glad you stayed? Oh, okay. So before anybody starts getting any funny ideas about it's their culture, not your costume there, Edward. By the way, I'm Edward. Hi. I'm one of the 3 hosts of Chicken Philosophy. There's me, BT, and Gwydion. We all have the same face and brain. Anyway, this is the Sherwani from my wedding reception. Here's some pictures of me wearing it back then. I think I look better in it now. Substantially heavier back then. I kind of let myself go. I was very fit when I was in California being a vegan yoga teacher, and then I came to India and just let myself go, and then got my shit together again. Anyway, yeah. So that's that, and we're back early. The 14 days of being a nomadic wanderer turned out not to be just for a variety of reasons. So we're back. I'm back here, and our incense for today. I think if you were to randomly spot check all the white guys wearing Indian clothes and see what kind of incense they were burning, it'd be a substantially high percentage of them burning this particular brand of this particular flavor. So if you want to be cool like me, then go to your local head shop and get yourself some Satya Sai Baba brand Nag Champa Agarbati, and you'll know what this smells like. Oh, it smells lovely, doesn't it? Now, for those familiar with, I'm going to do a little riff on Station to Station. It's a playlist. You can check it out. It's BT's thing. So don't take it too seriously today. But for those who know, you know. For those who don't know, which way's east? Just take a moment. The Muslims are like, that way. Everyone else is like, oh, let's see, I think the sun comes up. Do I have a compass? Anyway, so in the eastern wall of your room, you can look at it. You can whatever. You can close your eyes and remember what it looked like, but then a big door opens just to outer space, nothing but stars in all directions, even below you. And you walk through the door and you're walking on this thin, like, indigo brick road, brick path, and just on either side, you don't feel like you'd fall. If you fell off the path, you'd probably float or something, but you can walk on the path, and in front of you there's a black bowl sitting in the middle of the path, and you're going to have to make it move if you want to pass by. So you pick up a red, cloth like those assholes in Spain or Texas do, and you shake it, and the black bowl runs toward you and merges with the red cloth and becomes kind of a like a I'm sorry. I thought it was funny. All right, so we've done the beverage, we've done the incense, we've done the brief intro. Here's some more Christmas shenanigans. You can watch that while I get my shit together over here.
Ah, yes. Yes.
All right. Let's try to finish this introduction today. Let's see. The genuine works of our Hermes, now extant and here translated, and presumably belonging to the latter part of the 1st century and beginning of the 2nd, are 1. The Pymandres, of which he is by common consent the author, which consists mostly of the dialogues after the manner of Plato. Of dialogues, not the dialogue. Mostly of dialogues after the manner of Plato. The first alone bears that name, being a colloquy between that personage who represents, quote, I think that must be nous, because I've heard people say it so many times, nous or mind. It's in Greek. Or mind. Oh, we were going to do, Editor Edward, could you do the first letter of the Greek alphabet? Alpha. Uppercase looks like this. Lowercase looks like that. Alpha is the first letter of the Greek alphabet. In the system of Greek numerals, it has a value of 1. Alpha is derived from the Phoenician letter Aleph, which also is the origin of the Hebrew letter Aleph, right? Whose name comes from the West Semitic word for ox. Letters that arose from Alpha include the Latin letter A and the Cyrillic letter A. Thank you. That's going to be a thing now. So that's in the corner now. Yeah, we're going to go through the whole Greek alphabet that way. That one's kind of an easy one. Okay, who represents nous or mind, the wisdom and power and providence of God, life, and light, with Hermes himself. The 11th chapter also contains a dialogue of a similar character. In the remainder, Hermes instructs his son Tat at his disciple and grandson Asclepius, and in part mankind generally, in the wonderful knowledge of God, and of the creation and of piety, or piety as it's not pronounced, which he had learned from nous. 2. Several portions of the books of Hermes and his son Tat, for which we are mainly indebted to the excerpts made by Stobaeus in his Physica, Ethica, and the Florilegium. End quote. Also fragments of the first book of the Digressions to Tat, which are quoted in the works of Cyril of Alexandria against Julian, and some portions of the books of Hermes to the earlier Ammon, which are extracted from that work by Stobaeus in his Physica, with a few sentences quoted by Lactantius. Well, if it's tainted, maybe you should get another. Which are not to be found elsewhere. The citations from Hermes contained in the Christian Fathers will be found in part 3. All right, how'd they get them out? Extract them from the Christian Fathers that they were in. Other discourses, commonly called Hermaica, but which are not his, because containing statements and doctrines which are inconsistent with his, and are either of Egyptian and heathenish origin, or savior of the latter teaching of Plotinus and Jamblichus, and besides contain evident anachronisms, are therefore not included in this volume, although we find their plagiarisms from the original Hermes and many statements accordant with Christianity. These are 1. The perfect discourse, parentheses, something in Greek, I don't know, maybe by the time we get to the next part 20 something, then I'll be able to read lowercase Greek. We'll see. The Perfect Discourse, or something, I mean, I don't know what it says, which bears the title of Asclepius. The author speaks of Hermes as my grandfather, and calls Ammon into council, presumably that Ammonius Saccas, who was the master of Plotinus and died in Alexandria, AD 241, which means 241 CE, sort of an arcane way of saying it. Of this, except such of the extracts in Stobius and Lactantius as are in Greek, there is only one version extant, a Latin translation falsely ascribed to Asclepius. Well, that's quite a statement, which existed also solely in the time of St. Augustine, who cites it in chapters 23 and 26 of Lib 8 of his City of God, in parentheses, which was published with his works by Aldus in 1521, and Almenhorst at Frankfurt in 1621. 100 years later, what a wild coincidence that. This is not from the hands of our Hermes is at once apparent from its contents, which are at variance with his genuine writings. It contains, amongst other things, an eloquent address to the Nile, wherein the author, as a prophet, laments in touching terms the abolition of the ancient natural religion of Egypt. Oh, in touching terms. No, like in terms of touching. No, it laments in touching terms. Like, oh, those terms were touching. Like, oh, I'm touched. Not, teacher, I'm touched. You know what I mean? I'll just keep reading. That holy land and the approaching triumph of Christianity, the devastation of the country and of its sacred shrines, and destruction of the population. He speaks of, I don't know why I paused. He speaks of Isis and Osiris and the cult of animals. Of Jupiter Plotinus of 36 horoscopes. And of the Pantomorphosis. Further, do you put your Pantomorphosis on one leg at a time, or what? Further, it contains a distinct defense of the worship of statues of the gods formed by the hands of men, and maintains that it is a great privilege granted by God to men, the power of making gods. That Lactantius quotes this work more than once as of Hermes himself, and applies his description of the calamities of Egypt as if they were the afflictions to come upon the earth in the last days, is simply a proof of the uncritical judgment of some of the fathers as to chronology, and sometimes as to exact authorship, which is well known and acknowledged. They don't care who wrote it, as we all know, basically. I think so. It is plainly the production of an Alexandrian of the Egyptian religion, who assumed the name and discipleship of and quoted from Hermes for his own purposes, and most probably lived some short time before the epoch of Constantine. A second discourse, also found among the Hermaica, is a portion of that called the Sacred Book, denominated something in Greek, Patrit 271 Stobius Physica Meineke 1281, which Patrizi corrected after Stobius from a MS Word document, I'm guessing? No. Found at Anclistra in the island of Cyprus. It is a strange production, being a dialogue between Isis and his son Horus. Isis and his son. Isis, do you think he's a boy? Who wrote this? With Momus on the creation of the world and of souls and of metempsychosis. It places Platonic as if citing the Timaeus. It places in what? It is in places Platonic as if citing the Timaeus. Oh, that's what it means to be. You're so Platonic, it's like you're reciting the Timaeus. Come on, you know. And it quotes also by name Hermes and partly the account of him of the creation in, quote, Pomandres. Being apparently a summary of the Greco-Egyptian philosophy, it must be attributed to a Greco-Egyptian, probably of Alexandria, but it is scarcely Greek at all, and there are few indications of its exact date. In this production, Hermes is spoken of in these words, quote, Hermes, he understanding all things, who also saw the whole of things together, and having seen, considered them, and having considered them was powerful to explain and show them. For what he understood, he committed to characters, and having committed them to characters, concealed the most part, being silent with wisdom, and speaking opportunely, in order that all the duration of the world hereafter should search out these things, and thus having ordered the gods, his brethren, to become his escort, not like that, he ascended towards the constellations, but he had for successor Tat, his son and heir of his science, and shortly afterwards Asclepius, son of Eumolpus, by the counsel of Pan and Hephaestus, and all those to whom the mighty providence reserved an exact knowledge of the things of heaven. Hermes then excused himself to all his surroundings for not delivering the entire theory to his son on account of his youth. End quote. From this, it would appear that the writer of this discord was posterior to Asclepius, that is, of the middle or end of the 3rd century. Okay. A third fragment of importance is usually included among the Hermaica and is quoted by Lactantius with a like want of critical sagacity. It is denominated the, quote, definitions, something in Greek, of Asclepius to King Ammon, and, quote, did I say parentheses? I should have said quote. He calls, quote, Hermes my master, who conversed with me often alone or in the presence of Tat, end quote, and quotes many passages of the, quote, Pomandres, end quote. It is written with eloquence. Ammon the king is supposed to be present, and the main portion is occupied with the praise of King Ammon and other kings. The whole is alien from the spirit and dictation of Hermes himself, and must have been composed many years subsequently to the Pomandres, the theological and philosophical teaching of our Hermes, for he was both a theologian and a philosopher, may be thus summed up. First and foremost, he insists upon the being of the God, capital T, capital G, the unconditioned, capital U, the self-existent essence, lowercase s, hyphen E, and capital E for essence. Founder, something in Greek. Maker, something in Greek. Creator, something in Greek. Upholder and governor of the universe at his own mere will, the one, the only, the supreme. very life and light itself. He is almighty, something in Greek, never inert, but ever acting in part of his creation, pervading and energizing all things by his particular providence, to which fate and necessity are wholly subject. Nothing can subsist or move apart from him, who has in himself all things that have been, are, or shall be. You've seen Ant-Man, right? Never mind. He is the perfection of the true. He is the perfection and the sum of the good, the beautiful, the holy, and the true, immaterial, infinite, incorporeal, invisible, the object of none of the senses, ineffable, incomprehensible, inimitable, invariable, without form or figure, colorless, intelligence and wisdom itself, everlasting, independent of time, the eternal from eternity, the light and life of mankind, holiness and goodness itself, and in no sense the author of anything evil or base. If any evil exists in creation, it is as it were by way of rust or excrescence only, and cannot be attributed to the deity. This being above all, in all, and all about, is unity. This being, above all, in all, and about all, is unity. The universal harmony of the something in Greek, which is eloquently set forth, demonstrates that he can be but one. Motion exists throughout all the order of the worlds, and it is the condition and quality of the eternal. But this motion must be generated and continually energized by some being, with a capital B, superior to and stronger than that which is moved, and than the medium in which the motion takes place. If he ever ceased to energize, he would be no longer God. But this never can be. He is inexpressible and has no name. A name implies an elder or superior to give the name, but there is none such. We call him Father and Master and Lord of all existences, not as names, but appellations derived from his benefits and his works. By whatever name I call thee, thou art nameless unto eternity, right? This, the God before the moist nature, which appeared out of darkness, begat the perfect word, coessential, something in Greek, with himself, the second God, visible and sensible, first one and only, and loved him as his own Son, a sacred, ineffable, shining word, exceeding all the ability of men to declare, Son of God, the one man by the will of God, through wisdom in access, in prayer to the Father, the Lord in all things. Through this word were the what? Through this word were the world. Through this word were the world, the heaven, the stars, the earth, mankind, and all the living existences in them, brought into being and harmoniously ordered through the operation of mind, something in Greek, which is nous. The wisdom of God, the God of fire and spirit proceeding from God, which with the 7 administrative spirits created by it, whose administration constitutes fate, applied themselves to the conformation of the universe out of chaos, according to the idea, the archetype or pattern, pre-existent in the mind of the deity, the, quote, something in Greek, and, parentheses, quotes, so created, Hermes calls second God, as being wholly instinct with the one divinity. He gives the same appellation to the Son, for the same reason, and because it is the instrument of God's will in new creating. The mode of the creation is shown in the form of a vision displayed before Hermes, and in several portions is related to the very words of the Septuagint versions of Genesis. The procession of the Holy Spirit and his instrumentality in creation is enunciated, apparently according to the creed of the Orthodox Greeks. Thus, the God created man after the image of himself, as his child, an immortal and divine animal, out of two natures, the immortal and the mortal, between two, that viewing all things he may admire them and their wonderful order and harmony. Man has a divine nature, because he has a soul, an independent, incorporeal, immortal, energizing, intelligent essence, which, being a portion of the soul with which God animated the universe, was created before the body and was infused into it. Carl, what the fuck are you doing over there? I'm just, Maria Maltzer told me maybe I should try it. It is threshold, mind or reason, desire, and spirit which can receive God and become a consort of deity. Having intellect and speech immortal properties, that man may contemplate and worship his Creator. The greatest disease of the soul is ungodliness and ignorance of God. Right? Man, being an imperfect, fallible, and composite being, cannot know the God of himself, but those to whom the God of his own free will imparts this faculty can do so. Who wrote this introduction, man? And what are they on? Because I don't know if I want to try it, but I'm just curious. He is ever desirous. What? Yeah. He is ever desirous and willing to be known. And to those who are pure and who wish for this knowledge, he reveals himself by imparting to them of his mind, which is of the very essence of the divinity, and joined to it as the light is to the sun. Not that mind is God, but that the God is the cause of mind. This mind in men is God. Such men, therefore, have their humanity near to deity, for he is their very father. When they leave the body, they become this mind. They must seek the knowledge of him, which is virtue, temperance, piety, salvation, and ascent to heaven. The God created all things. Perfect man has become depraved, but has free choice of good and evil. Like I said, we're reading the introduction. It's written by somebody. They sound like they're on their own trip. They're writing their own Chaldean oracles or something, But I don't know. Maybe they read it and they're inspired. Like, hey man, you won't believe what this shit's saying. It's saying God is the creator and the mind and you and Oh, I bet you can't wait to read it. Yeah, I can't. Would you shut up and let me read it? No. How much more introduction is there? We're going to finish the introduction today. Okay. They must seek the knowledge of him, which, God created. The God created all things perfect. Man has become depraved, but has free choice of good and evil. To attain this state, then, men must hate and mortify the flesh, its vices and excesses, reject the depravity and ignorance of earth, where truth does not exist, the wickedness, darkness, and corruption of the body. Sounds like the name of a club I'd like a ticket to, please. Tonight. Is there a dress code? Sorry. They must recur and look in heart to him who can alone show the way of salvation. The mode of accomplishing this, which can only be done by the help of God, who is willing to reveal himself to all, is by ridding themselves of the 12 principal vices. I like writing in themselves the 12 principal vices. No. And excesses, reject the depravity and ignorance of earth, where truth does not exist, the wickedness, darkness, and corruption of the body. They must recur and look in heart to him who can alone show the way of salvation. The mode of accomplishing this, which can only be done by the help of God, who is willing to reveal himself to all, is by ridding themselves of the 12 principal vices, and acquiring in their place the 10 cardinal virtues. When these shall be so acquired, man becomes fitted to ascend to the Ogdoad. Can't wait. The 8th circle. Ogdoad, the Ogdoad, the 8th circle, to the presence of God his Father, to become immortal, part of his essence, and of his powers and virtues, and divine something in Greek. This may happen even in the body, by the gift of God. This is the regeneration, something in Greek. This, the author of it, is the enlightening word of God, the one man by the will of God. Baptism is to be added, and his good spirit must lead men thereto. Those thus regenerate will strive to bring all mankind to the same blessed state. All right, I think I'm pretty well familiar with the headspace of whoever wrote this introduction to the Divine Pymander of Hermes, and not that into it. Michel Chodkiewicz. I'm kind of down with some Michel Chodkiewicz, Like there's certain introduction writers and commentators around ancient texts that I'm kind of cool. But this Christian guy who's Divine Pymander, but also Jesus, once you get that essential ingredient in place, then you will be saved according to my priest. Okay. Can we read the document now? A few more pages. Neither any evil, nor has fate any power over those who are thus pious and regenerate. They are rewarded with immortality, both of soul and body. And didn't you know the Nicene Creed, the original? We look forward to the resurrection of the dead. They mean it. They mean some zombie shit. That's why you're not supposed to get cremated and all this shit. It has to be holy ground, blah, blah, blah. If you get all traditional with it. SCA, becoming partakers of divinity, having attained the supreme good. In death, the union of soul and body is dissolved, but the soul survives. There can be no destruction of what is of God and in God. From the perishing body, parentheses, which is not a destruction but a dissolution of the union in order to be renovated, end parentheses, a new body arises and becomes immortal through the immortal soul. This cannot wholly be attained in the present life, but after death, the man, becoming entirely in harmony with God, employs himself beyond the 8th or perfect zone in hymns of happiness and praise. Those who adhere to the body and surrender themselves to its passions are abandoned by God. They attain not unto the good or to immortality, but becoming more and more wicked, they are given over for vengeance to the evil demon, tormented by wicked demons and fire, retrograding to reptilism. Retrograding to reptilism. Sounds like a party. They are given over to be tormented by evil passions and lusts, and condemned to misery, are whirled about the universe, are converted into devils. No allusion is, however, made by Hermes to the Egyptian judgment by Osiris, or to that by Christ, taught in the New Testament. Finally, the great, and is he summarizing the whole book? Are you telling us what we're about to read before we start reading it? If so, Oh my God, from the heart, fuck you. I hate, that's the worst kind of introduction. Let me tell you exactly what you're going to read. Or actually, let me tell you my interpretation of it, step by step. Chapter 1. It's basically this, I think, probably, and Jesus. There's not enough Jesus in it. Chapter 2, like, fuck off. Seriously. Finally, the great end of man is, when thus purified and regenerated, to worship his Creator in his presence, and to be united to him, and to contemplate and adore him in holy silence. In the Pymanders are 3 several anthems of praise and blessing, quote, verbal rational sacrifices, and, quote, addressed to the deity. One of them denominated, quote, the hymn of the regeneration, end quote, to the God, quote, whose only passion is to be the good, end quote. There is a certain likeness in these. Okay, we're almost done. There is a certain likeness in these to the ancient Egyptian hymns to Ra, to Hades. Ancient Egyptian hymns to Hades? You mean the ancient Greek Egyptian Hades? Or the and Osiris, and to the litany of Ra, translated and published in the records of the past, but of much greater resemblance to several of the Psalms. Thus does Hermes inculcate or imply several of the main doctrines and objects of Christianity, but is fair to admit that, as before observed, he does not notice the fact of the nativity upon earth. The fact, this is the same guy that calls this a fact. Oh my God. Okay, one more page of this. Who have we been reading? The preface. Is the preface part of the original fucking thing? No, of course not. Translated from the original by John D. Chambers, but who wrote the preface? God, I've been reading it for so long. And they're not going to tell us who wrote it? Are you serious? You gotta be kidding me. The preface is anonymous? Or it says translated from the original Greek by John D. Chambers. Did he write the preface and then not put his name on the preface for some reason? Who wrote the preface? All right. Or the crucifixion, the fact of the crucifixion, the death, resurrection, or ascension of Christ. The fact of the ascension, right? Or his coming to judgment. Perhaps they did not come together within the purview of his intention, as neither within that of Paley in his, quote, natural theology, end quote. Like, I have no issue with, like, if you're a pastor in a church or, like, a youth, whatever, and you're inside the church and everybody there is like, yeah, I'm a believer, man, totally, everybody's wearing a cross, and then you all say, like, this book doesn't acknowledge the fact of the ascension of Christ, and everybody nods, and, like, that's the time and place to say shit like that. But in a book, in the preface of a book, what are you doing? And why haven't you signed your name to it? Are you the guy, are you John D. Chambers talking? If so, nice to meet you. Now we kind of know what's going on in your head. Can't wait to read the text. But it's kind of like, for me, it's kind of like, all right, it kind of makes me a little leery about the text we're about to read, that someone like this likes it enough to write the preface to it. You know what I mean? Like, he's saying his own thing. Like, clearly, I mean, he's interpreting it for us, but saying what it should be more like, or what he thinks it should be more like, or what it, ought to imply more that he thinks it implies, but only partly, and it's like, okay, dude, go back to church. Perhaps they did not come within the purview of his intention, as neither within that of Paley in his natural theology. The astronomical teaching of Hermes is merely incidental to the rest, and is simple enough. The whole universe is in the form of a sphere. Nature is composed of 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And if there's any idiots out there nodding and going, yeah, so the round earthers are fucked, and there aren't all this whole periodic chart of the elements, it's all a sphere, and it's flat, we're in the middle, and earth, air, fire, and water, as God intended. Okay, go back to your cabin. No, I love you, I disagree with you. Go back to your cabin. No, whatever you want to do, be free. Leave your cabin. Go back to Hollywood. whatever. He appears to have inferred the rotundity of the earth from that of the sun, moon, planets, the latter perhaps revolving around the sun. Oh, sorry guys, this is ahead of you, at least according to the see, when this buffoon who's writing the introduction says something I agree with, then I'm like, oh, see, and then the rest of the time I'm like, hey, who is this guy? But the whole cosmical system around the earth is an organized harmony of the one external of 7 inners, circles, the varying motion of the planets being accounted for by a resting medium. He was aware of the difference between the revolutions of Venus and Mercury and those of the other planets, but does not account for it. He asserts plainly enough that the earth itself is stable and immovable, the constellations, especially the zodiac, fixed in a solid firmament, circulating round the earth also, diagonally to the equatorial circle, and the orbits of the planets, with the polar star for a central pivot drawn round it by the constellation of the Bear. The whole system of this something in Greek, or universe, maybe that's cosmos, maybe I feel like it might be cosmos, and of the harmony thereof is mainly the same as that of Plato. It is remarkable that Hermes anticipates modern philosophy by insisting that there is no void in nature, nequaquam vacuum, any relation, that none of the works of the god can become extinct or perish, but if disappearing, are resolved into some other essence or nature, and renovated in another form. Thus, it would appear, affirming the future eternity of existing matter, and deducing from this the immortality of the human body. His reasoning resembles that of St. Paul, 1 Corinthians XV 36, quote, "Thou foolish one," that's my Paul voice today, "thou foolish one, that which thou thyself sowest is not quickened except it die," end quote. And see, I mean, like the and symbol with a C after it. I don't know, some scholastic thing, maybe. It is, or just a typo. The cat jumped on the keyboard. It is, of course, impossible in this volume to contrast the theology and philosophy of our Hermes with that of Philo-Judaeus, with which it has many points of resemblance, or with that of the Grecian sages generally, but in the notes several extracts have been given from the dialogues of Plato, as edited by C.F. Hermann at Leipzig in 1877, and from other authors illustrative of the text. Many passages of Holy Scripture from the Septuagint and the Revised Version of the New Testament have likewise been noted with the same view. Finally, it's the last paragraph of the introduction. Holy shit! Then we can actually read the Divine next time. BT's going to read it. Finally, it is desirable to state that the language and style of our Hermes is semi-classical, though Alexandrian, and without dialect, but often rugged, involved, mystical, tautological, and obscure, with a number of technical words belonging to the Greek philosophy, which renders it difficult to translate. It bears much resemblance to that of Plato, whose writings he had certainly studied. The aim of the translator... this is not the unless he's talking about himself in the third person. The aim of the translator has not been to produce a flowing version, or an elegant paraphrase, or a pithy abbreviation, but to render the original into English with as much literal exactness as practicable. Right? Well, that's probably good and probably could be improved by somebody like a time traveler who also is familiar with our present-day idioms. They could be like, oh, this is like saying, that's how the cookie crumbles. I was like, oh, the chariot wheel gets stuck in the rut of the rat and sings hallelujah to the Lord. I mean, you know what I mean. We did it. We accomplished our goal for today, which was to finish reading the introduction so that next time, in part 4 of the Divine Pymander of Hermes Trismegistus, our very own Frater BT, who surrendered, you remember, in his episode. He gave his reading spot over to Pymander. So this is actually going to be BT's first proper episode, and he gets to be the first one to actually read the translation. No introduction. No whoever that guy was. Mr. Anonymous Christian guy. So there it is. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you had a merry holidays and whatnot yesterday. I'm recording this the day after Christmas, and all right. Next time it'll be Gwydion doing an actual I Ching reading, because that's what we've decided is that's what he'll do when it's his turn. And this is the third to last. He'll be doing the red and white. This was what? I'm Edward. That's blue. And it was Divine Pymander. That's orange. This was a blue and orange episode. That'll be the red and white. Gwydion doing I Ching, followed by BT doing Meccan Revelation. And that'll be the end of the Christmas of 2515, which we're in the middle of, or where that was. I just said all that. This is part third. This is the 13th of the 15. There's 2 more. And then we get to decide what to name the cycle after this. And we get to make one of those groovy things. It'll make sense. Just stick with me. It's a cycle of 15 compilation video. Here's, you can catch up. These are the ones that exist so far. All right. Till next time.